The reopening of the Ammon Resort in St. Peter has had a major impact on business and activity in the north of the island. This is the view of Minister of Tourism Richard Seeley, who made the comment as debate on the appropriations bill continued in Parliament.
The north of the country, in light of the Ammon rooms back on stream, Spikestown is now a different city. Remember, for St. Peter will probably not mention it when he speaks, but Spikestown has come alive. If you see Spikestown on a Friday evening now, it is different.
Honourable member, you have 2 minutes left.
There's activity there. I would, and Spikestown and the suburbs going right up to St. Lucie. I'm sure that the member for St. Lucie's selling more sea cat and everything else now because of the Ammon and so on, the Ammon experience.
But opposition St. Michael's Southeast MP Santia Bradshaw says Caribbean countries have realized that Barbados is lagging in tourism and have stepped up to the plate. She believes better can be done with respect to local tourism, to the local tourism product, and wants efforts made to improve the sector.
What is it that the Democratic Labour Party is doing in the tourism sector? Because, Mr. Speaker, I have concerns that this sector, if we don't get it right, it is going to impact on the entire economy. It is going to impact on the people in St. Michael's Southeast. Because if we don't make the money in the tourism sector, we're not going to be able to pay for all the social development policies articulated and carried on by both administrations. And the reality is that in St. Michael's Southeast, I feel it.
Attorney General Adriel Brathwaite is extremely concerned about the increasing cases of missing children, and he's promising tough action against people found guilty of exploiting young boys and girls in such instances. This was his message on day 2 of the estimates debate. He's calling on lawmen to take note and adopt a no-nonsense approach.
I want to send a signal that I'm going to use my office over the next couple of months to ensure that if anything untoward has been happening with these young people who are missing, that persons are brought before the courts of this country. Because one of the things I keep on complaining about and that upsets me is that our young girls and boys should be allowed to grow up as young girls and boys and not be exploited by big men and women in this country. And I will use my office so that if there are any cases, that they're brought before the courts of this country.
The Attorney General also says a number of police stations, including the much talked about Black Rock facility, will be addressed under the $80 million allocated to his ministry. Minister of Social Care, Constituency Empowerment and Community Development Steve Blackett has accused the opposition Barbados Labour Party of trying to scare off potential investors. He says the party is seeking to dig up dirt and paint a bad image for investors in an effort to derail investment. He says the action is unprecedented in Barbados.
What they're hoping to do, Mr. Speaker, they're hoping to scuttle any benefits that can be derived from any investor to Barbados. They're also hoping to deprive Barbadians of any possible job opportunities. They're also hoping to damage the reputation of this good country. And also they're hoping to hamper any economic benefits that can be derived for this good country.
Mr. Blackett says government has maintained a vibrant safety net to cushion Barbadians during the current economic crisis. MP for St. Michael West Central, James Paul, said government had little or no option but to lay off hundreds of public workers. He says the sector had become too large and unsustainable. He says the move is intended to safeguard Barbados' future.
If we are to safeguard Barbados as we know it, if we are to safeguard the continued provision of primary education to our children, if we are to safeguard the continued provision of secondary education to our children, if we are to safeguard the provision of polyclinic services, Black Rock Polyclinic in Black Rock, the ordinary services that you get there, if we are to safeguard those, we can't safeguard them. If we continue to prop up a system that from the very start, the opposition you cannot be sustained.
The opposition MP for the city has criticized government's 14% cut in expenditure on the Ministry of Social Care, calling it a wrong move. Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic says the negative impact will be felt by the vulnerable people in particular who need help the most.
We see people approach us every day. And so we know that the declining economic situation really is taking a heavy toll on the less fortunate within our society. So that problem now exacerbated by large numbers of persons being unemployed obviously will create even greater pressures on those that already exist. And this is something that any caring government, any caring society must not lose focus on.
MP for St. George South, Dwight Sutherland, has called for rationalization and efficiency at the Transport Board. He's charging that many school children are having problems getting to school in rural Barbados.
I'm saying to you that the Transport Board is the poster child of victimization of the Democratic Labour Party in this country. Because you have people who have entered the Transport Board back in 1994, clerks who have been given letters, termination letters, and you have people who have entered the Transport Board post-2008 in the same post who are still working. Now tell me that is not victimization, especially when they're from most of the rural Barbados that supported this party, this great party, the Barbados Labour Party.
In other news now, if Barbados is to move forward, it has to put money in agriculture. That's the view of the island's ambassador to China, Dr. Charleston Brathwaite. He's again called on the island to invest more in its agricultural sector, positioning it at the forefront of the island's economic development. His comments came in Jiamin, China, following a tour of the Yinlu Agro-Processing Company. Yinlu was started by 6 persons in 1985 with a $5,000 US investment. It has grown into a multi-million-dollar vertically integrated enterprise, providing jobs for more than 15,000 persons in its 5 productive bases. Dr. Brathwaite says Barbados can learn from the company. The visit to Yinlu is part of a 3-week trade and economic seminar arranged for a 20-member Barbadian delegation of public and private sector enterprises by Beijing's Academy for International Business Officials. Barbadians should be able to file their income taxes online by the end of the week. This assurance from Customer Service Manager at the Inland Revenue Department, Neville Clark. People are usually able to file their taxes from the beginning of March, but Mr. Clark explains that some technical problems delayed the process. He tells CBC News the form has been prepared and successfully tested and includes some changes to reflect provisions of new legislation like the consolidated tax.
Once the information is completed on the individual form itself, it will flow directly through to the consolidation tax section, which is at the back of the form, and that should not pose a problem at all to persons. There's also a section on the form for persons who would be either installers, developers, or manufacturers of solar electric systems or any system that would generate electricity other than fossil fuels. The income from that venture is subject to a 10-year tax holiday. And if persons are doing into that business, they should seek guidance from the Ministry of Energy.
Mr. Clark says more people have been filing their taxes on time since the penalty for failing to do so was increased to $500 in 2011.
It has had the desired effect. It was not to raise funds so much as to get persons to file their returns early and save the backlog later on. We've had close to 100,000 returns filed for last year. And we hope that this year we will surpass that number because we are looking to increase the number of persons filing returns voluntarily. And by so doing, we will be increasing the tax intake, reducing the burden on those who file, who have deductions made monthly and weekly from their wages.
With the number of people, particularly children with disabilities in Barbados increasing, there's a call for more training for teachers of children with special needs. This plea from one of those teachers, Sharon Knight, during a seminar to examine the state of play for children with disabilities. Ms. Knight says teachers of children with special needs do not have enough access to training, and even when it is done, it's infrequent.
Students with developmental and learning disabilities need the best teachers who are trained in the appropriate strategies and methodologies to reach these students and to enable them to become productive and independent citizens and to make a significant contribution to their country.
In outlining some of the challenges these teachers face, Ms. Knight says while several of them in the system are qualified, their skills are not being used in the right way.
It is interesting to note that there are many qualified teachers in the educational system who have done the Mount St. Vincent Master's Program in Special Needs. Unfortunately, too many of these teachers are not deployed throughout the school system where their specialized knowledge and skills can be best utilized. Some teachers have also attended workshops relating to special needs offered by Earlston Teachers Training College. Again, they are underutilized. Where some of them are located, they are not even being used effectively in the schools.
And Elizabeth King Yearwood, whose 10-year-old daughter has a disability, wants more collaboration among the private sector agencies that deal with these children.
I find that there is too much separation, segregation. This team over here wants to work, but they don't want to work. If this team is working, there is no coming together. Many times I have to take Ariel out of school where she misses again, she's behind, to take her to speech therapy, to take her to occupational therapy. There is no, okay, I will come into the school. That is not facilitated in any way.
Barbados is being encouraged to consider introducing the science of astronomy in secondary schools. Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, Senator Harry Husbands, says a proposal was put forward calling for it to be incorporated into the curriculum of physics and integrated science. Senator Husbands, at the reopening of the Harry Bailey Observatory, says the Clapham St. Michael facility brings with it many benefits. He sees it assisting students with their studies.
The reopening of the Harry Bailey Observatory will provide an opportunity for students to strengthen their theoretical knowledge of astronomy with the practical component of viewing space and its various components through a telescope. This observatory also provides the informal facility for exposing students not studying astronomy and members of the general public to the world of astronomy in an informal setting. In so doing, the facility provides opportunities for patrons to be introduced to science in a general way.
Members of the Young Women's Christian Association's Breakfast Club are seeing an improvement in the grades of many of the students who accept meal assistance. YWCA President Andrea Taylor says a baseline study suggests that there may be a link between their academic performance and the free morning meals. She says they will undertake a comprehensive study which may confirm their hunch.
We think it is very important that you, the general public, understands the degree and the nature of what we do here at the YWCA. We want to have a balance that we can actually have some statistical information because, you know, numbers count. When you can say you move from, let's say, 0 to 50% of the children doing very well at school, those are numbers that you can actually acknowledge and it can form a basis for a person to say, okay, well, if this is the case, we can go ahead with this organization because they have statistics.
The breakfast program feeds more than 1,200 students daily, either privately or through 16 primary and secondary schools. 2 additional schools have requested meal assistance this year. The UK-based charity, Barbados Cultural Organization, has donated $4,000 to assist the breakfast program. Chairman Cedric Lynch says it will raise more money for the club over the next 3 years.
It's always a pleasure to be home and And when you get the chance to see that there's some person there's always people in worse situations than you are. And in reading the little bit about the Breakfast Club, and you're thinking about single parent families or people who are obviously, in a little bit of poverty, etc. It's always good to think that we can help them. And I see Andrea's program is being widened a bit, and I think every little bit can help. So we're very glad that we can do so.
Well, it was a day of learning as students from primary, secondary and tertiary level institutions gained first-hand knowledge into the management of the island's most precious resource, water. As activities continue to mark World Water Week, the Barbados Water Authority played its part in highlighting the importance of valuing water to Barbadians by hosting an open day at its Bowmanston station in St. John. Students were told about the operations of the BWA and its projects to come on stream, including the introduction of new water meters. Engineer at Bowmanston, Chanel Bailey, says a lot of work is undertaken by the authority. She feels Barbadians must be made to understand it is more to just turning on a tap and water flowing from it.
We try to organize the tour so that the children will get a better overview of how the water pumping system operates, because you find that a lot of people don't really understand where we get the water from and how we get the water to them, right? You think that you just turn on a pipe and you can get water, but basically it's a lot more than that, right? There's a lot more detail that goes into us giving you water.
Senior engineer Wayne Richards welcomed efforts to expose the public to the work of the authority. He says the tour will not only assist students with their studies, but expose them to various professions to consider.
Electrician, water quality technologist, hydrogeologist, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical fitter, electrical fitter, clerk typist, secretary. All the jobs go on and on. There's a wide section of job-related activities within Barbados Water Authority.